Starting lineup: Cho'Gath, Warwick, Aurora, Poppy, Neeko, up against Garen, Tryndamere, Annie, Sejuani, Nami. Rating of the picks for a casual game: Cho'Gath as a top, 10. Warwick in the jungle, 8. Aurora as a mid, 7. Poppy as a shooter, 0. Neeko in support, 7. Garen as a top, 8. Tryndamere in the jungle, 7. Sejuani as a shooter, 0. Nami in support, 6. My overall most graceful performance in this episode. Also in this episode, making a mockery of everything that I've ever said about how we need way more tanks in the game. Playing them in an obviously inappropriate manner. And man, this happens way too frequently. There is really something on a broader level going on with the mental health of many people, especially adults. I say adults because I almost always play late night. And just the necessity of wanting to break these few simple rules that the game really imposes on you. Feeling that necessity, feeling that anguish about wanting to rebel against such a very basic and simple system because apparently you cannot make your peace with it, points to an element of anxiety or general mental illness that we just see way too much. You double up here in this game. You have it twice. You have two occurrences of it in this particular game that are very similar in nature. Also in this game, a drunk guy. This is also a great opportunity to experience pacing and how champions may end up experiencing limitations when they cannot go faster than the pace of the game requires. Moving on. Out with the fish and the swine down the bottom lane. You end up getting hit by that blooming burst from Neeko here. If it hits multiple enemies, it bounces, dealing more damage with each bounce. This finishing off of Aurora, such an absolute stumble by this Tryndamere player, a champ with such natural focus on auto-attacking and such massive auto-attack damage. That in combination with telling me WTF am I doing in my own lane? A little bit of a clown intro for this Tryndamere. A little bit much of a clown intro. On a community level, Neeko somewhat failed, not a popular champ at all, despite the fact that she is good at everything. A truly fearsome champ. Me personally stayed away from her because of the social stigma around using the passive of inherent glamour. Neeko can disguise herself as an ally champ or summon units such as minions or pets. That passive is fantastic for deception and ambushes, setting up surprise ganks, but me personally, I've already seen how people get sour when you don't end up using that non-stop. And I just do not want to spend the whole game clicking deceive, deceive, deception, deception. If not for that, we would have gone Neeko a very long time ago, because she is essentially cheating. When your mage character is outdoing Jinx in terms of efficient auto attacks, you know that you've broken the game. Just disgustingly good. If we ever get higher up, we're going to see Neeko completely changing the outcome of games. I'm absolutely convinced of that. End up getting hit by a couple of abilities here. This is the one time in the game where I do not have Banshee's Veil. That means you can burst me down more efficiently. The secret to all success in the lower tiers on Annie is going to revolve for me around, can you get a feel for those first 3 spells and that mid-range fire dance? Can you stay good? Can you stay safe and score some points until the bear arrives? Because once the bear comes into play, there's no question that I'm beating out almost every mage one-on-one. We're gonna have a characterization of this Tryndamere player, something that I've been talking about for so long as somebody who started as a jungler. Don't steal jungle mobs and jungle creepers in the stupidest possible way. Now you're taking a death over this because you're super smart and you wanted to steal Warwick's jungle creepers because you're sly and slick and a real gangsta. And what we have to remember about this Annie-Aurora matchup is that you're already at an inherent disadvantage. Annie was constructed around laning and 1v1 domination with a powerful summon. Aurora was constructed around team fights, and you saw her in a lot of fancy pro play, and now you want to be her because she is just a team fight mechanic with a character attached to it. And then with this Tryndamere player, you know you have a truly foolish person here when he starts opening his yap to the Sejuani player about how he should F off and how he should be retreating after getting killed himself seconds earlier. A lot of yap and no game. It just tells you everything about a guy's personality, that you're doing such a bad job of positioning yourself, getting yourself killed the entire time, and then ordering other people around, telling them, hey, go here, go there. Like, fix up your own game first. Aurora, to succeed in a lane 1v1, takes a great player. Aurora really should lose lane duels, and then later on the design is to take revenge when the team fights come out and the 5v5s come out. And when you're in deep endgame, designed to blitz everybody down. Put them on a long revive timer and crack open that enemy camp and that enemy base. If she were to be both better at laning as well as in deep endgame team fights, she would be a broken character. But it seems more than anything what we have here in this Aurora player is a naive boy without experience who's dreaming about what he saw on television in the big competitions, and he's just hoping that the magic will find him. None of these 1v1 considerations seem to be really in his head in any way. You see that passive slowly kicking in. Basic attacks apply frost to enemies she hits. 3 hits mean a stun. We have this Tryndamere player telling me WTF am I doing in my own lane for the second time. Trying to take this turret, but like everything else in life, miserably failing. You get Neeko with minimal effort setting up a gank on this Sejuani player. Maybe the best root-like ability that is in the game, Neeko's second spell. This Poppy player trying to reinvent the wheel. This Aurora player stuck in a fantasy, struggling to take the Sejuani down. There's no question this Neeko player was one of the best players in the game. I personally would like her much more in mid or in shooter and get something tankier for support with more hit points. Nami throws a bubble at a target area. Aqua Prison, the stun. All the enemies in the area are stunned for a brief moment and it knocks them up. But you only have a little bit of range on that ability, so it requires good positioning to land it successfully. Nami may very well end up being one of those few champs on which movement speed spending is actually justified. It's so funny, people always completely detach their budget from the real impact when it comes to movement speed spending. You would never think that way about health. You would never think that way about armor. You would never go like, well, no matter what it costs. I'll get health no matter what it costs. You would never say that. But for movement speed, people always say that. It's hilarious how these fixations grow. To many people, this will seem a deeply screwed up team comp in this Poppy and this Neeko player. But since playing Neeko in support is really more of a pro move, and the amateurs would struggle with it significantly because of the lack of tankiness, it actually kind of works out. You just obviously switch roles. Because Neeko in shooter slot would be close to a 10, and Poppy in support would absolutely be a 10. So in a bizarre way, you end up landing on your feet. And if I can read people at all, this Aurora player, sour, bitter about the champion that got her to gold, somebody thinking that they're not getting their proper due, not resonating with the champs who typically take over games. I've been there, believe me. And now just looking at the absolute stereotypes of what the meta is. Not a very healthy position to be in as a league player. These are the type of people who are clinging to these apparitions of what the meta might be because they're discontent with their actual main. Those are the type of people who typically end up leaving the game and dropping game. It's the type of WoW player that thinks he's not being given his proper spotlight as a shaman, and he ends up forcing himself to play the paladin, and he ends up not resonating with the paladin at all. That's the vibe I'm getting from this Liquid Givenchy. Warwick going after Atakan, Sejuani sniping Warwick, and Neeko just going to miss with a couple of abilities like Blooming Burst here. You have Nami trying to flash out, doing as best she can. You have Poppy trying to make you laugh, using that ultimate in the most bizarre possible manner that you will ever see. I jump in and they all run away. I wish I was kidding. End up at the Drake, have this Sejuani sending out useful pings. This Tryndamere for the most part forsaken his jungle duties and will essentially only go after objectives when other people have already started. You end up defeating this Warwick player by activating your ultimate. Not much to brag about, but you got it done. Have this Poppy using that extra mobility tool to try to get away, but a little bit of an overrated ability in that sense. Sejuani and Nami hit with the Neeko ult, and you see the same thing that I described earlier. Random clicks from this Liquid Givenchy player, Broken Spirit, and not using her abilities in a consistent manner. You can tell when somebody's not at all feeling their character and just playing it because they saw it on TV. You have a lot of people here who wore themselves out on Divinity Original Sin and Baldur's Gate, trying to live out their personal fantasies here. Nothing we've never seen before. Charging in with this Arctic Assault on Sejuani and doing the Winter's Wrath, just detached from what the values and the damage values are behind these abilities, but struggling your way over the finish line and you just somehow make something happen. It's kind of frightening to what degree people are just willing to take loss after loss and invite horrible energy into their private time and their private life by intentionally playing this game in a way that it was never intended to be played. In a way, a lot of what you see in these clips is the very reason why nobody will try the unconventional real impact strategies that I frequently talk about. Adding more health and resistances to teams. About providing a solid amount of tanks. The reason why nobody will try those things is because these kind of clowns turn it into a complete joke. When you're talking about gradually padding the team with more survivability and more tankiness, you obviously do that in tanky positions and tanky spots. To do that specifically here in shooter slots is making a mockery of the very idea. All the way at the start, we have this fool giving commands again. We're gonna see the follow-up on that. I'm coming down anyway because I'm not listening to this guy. So naturally, it results in me immediately getting a kill. We're going to retreat for a moment. This is just map awareness, having Atakan primarily focus on you. Retreating is also one of the best possible ways to isolate an enemy, because none of his little friends will follow him. You can just tell that this Aurora player struggles with her identity and not at all counting and adding up the reality of Annie's stun capacity. Your ultimate nightmare, Cho'Gath shows up, the embodiment of the void consumption. You see that endless versatility of Neeko, so good at hunting targets down, chasing people down, and then that tragic, apologetic death on Sechuani, just handing the enemy a free kill because you want to remain in the good graces of this Nami player. They end up getting Atakan and have double life. Have this team fight here that you can't win. I stay out of it for that exact reason. This is just sacrifice time. If you wait 1 minute and 50 seconds, the Atakan element of revival will expire. Down at the Baron, and I see Warwick, in all likelihood drunk off of his face, can't get the kill because of Atakan. The effect ultimately ends after 2 minutes have passed. I teleport in to join this chaos. Neeko ends up getting away, and I do a pretty poor job of using that ult as a grenade, because that is the kind of initial impact that it really has. They end up taking out practically every structure on the red base, because they're able to hide behind Cho'Gath, who's doing a tremendous job just standing in front of everything. And it is the embodiment of despair. Nothing has any effect. As soon as they separate, you blitz them down with the ultimate again. Get that double kill. My teleport is up all the way at the end of the game. Garen is going to have to retreat here, but he did some serious damage to the base. Naturally, Tryndamere told him. You can already guess what he told him. WTF are you doing? Because this Tryndamere player is an effing genius. I'm going to pour it in and finish the job. That was a great setup. Now all I have to do is score the ball. The first thing this Tryndamere player can start doing is close his yap, because every call you've made throughout this entire game was mistaken. And just this passive carnivore from Cho'Gath, which is really a very humble title for his passive. Anything that dies around him, minions, jungle camps, or champs, it just heals him up every single time. It's so difficult to chip him down because death inherently replenishes him. That ultimate feast doesn't only provide massive burst damage, but it's also healing Cho'Gath for a percentage of extra health again. Even more survivability, and in every game he also physically grows because of this ultimate. And if you position that rupture correctly and you pace yourself properly, that crowd control just makes him look like an unkillable juggernaut in every single game. This is not Groundhog Day or ReZero, and we learn to live with the reality that we have, but if I could ever reintroduce myself to League and start from zero again, my goodness man, would I play my first 400 games purely on Cho'Gath. You bet I would. The downside to Cho'Gath will be displayed in this game, as the blue team is eventually going to fall, which is to say, Cho'Gath is way more reliable than a flexible mid like Ahri or Sylas or Annie. Cho'Gath will perform way better in terms of consistency and winning matchups every single time. However, he is so slow and so much about just existing and so difficult to turn into a DPS machine that he just doesn't have the speed to immediately take over games. Cho'Gath can only win in the best possible way that a rookie dominating the game could win, which is by grinding it out. Cho'Gath's only weakness is that when he can't force grinding it out, when for some reason the game speeds up, he becomes nothing more than a passenger. Which is why Cho'Gath is the best possible start that you could ever have on League of Legends, but much like Warwick, unfortunately, you should eventually abandon him. We are definitely not in that area yet with the progress that we've made on this channel, but once a person would get to about silver ranked, they would definitely reach that point, where they would need a character like Sylas with a lot of speed to take over games. Because at that level, grinding it out just cannot cut it anymore. And if you want to prepare for the future and try to build on something that will last, mages are a better thing to practice in the very long term. Let's break it up into smaller bits and pieces. Let's analyze this game. Let's analyze the individuals in this game. We have this Ronin Warlord, Cho'Gath player. Should I be scared that Cho'Gath typically attracts old people? Both the top laners did amazing in this game. Absolute backbone of this game. This Ronin Warlord player just fell for the same old trick that is so typical. I've recently said it a couple of times, don't trust that teleport, man. The amount of people I've seen die like that. If you are not in a completely secure area, do not just teleport back to the fountain. Make sure you run back. You've seen me do that recently. I run a ways back until I'm really close to my own base. The mistake that this Cho'Gath player made is you're being slightly too gentle and too delicate with Cho'Gath. You can pump that mana a little more, and you can test his insane health a little bit more. You played a little bit too careful, and that resulted in not being able to push when it was absolutely crucial. You ended up playing around self-preservation, which is by itself an extremely good trait and mindset that speaks to a healthy amount of self-respect. But in this case, you went a little bit too far in the self-preservation. Everything else that I can tell, 10 out of 10 job. You have this Warwick player, an epic example of why Warwick is the most simplistic champion in the video game. And why playing him is a little bit of admitting that you are brain dead. This person was drunk off of his face. You can clearly see him completely wandering off half of the game, unaware of what is going on, and you still somehow went 2-4. Because it's Warwick, it's literally impossible to screw it up. We have Liquid Givenchy, this Aurora player. You had to go and eat down in the bottom lane. You went 7-7. Because you were starving in the mid lane. By itself, it's normal for a late night game when you're playing a completely new character that you have no real solid control and that you're overthinking the spells. That's normal for a new champion. But I really also see some self-loathing in this player. This is a type of person who's in a kind of identity crisis. If you're League of Legends and the League development team, you want to try to help this person as soon as possible so he doesn't quit the game. Because these are the types of people who end up quitting and abandoning League. If you want to be smart as a business, you should have a kind of revival plan for these kinds of people. You have Poppy as a shooter. You went 3 and 6. It depends on how you look at things. In hindsight, really, because of the fact that people play Jhin and Jinx in support slot the entire time, it is actually a devilishly good way to maintain team balance, I suppose. You correctly made the invaluable diagnosis that casual teams should be building themselves approximately 5 times more tanky than they currently are. But you did commit a kind of sacrilege that even I cannot really go for, which is getting rid of the only ADC. It's kind of odd for me to argue against this kind of person, because in most ways I'm like this person myself. I am a free spirit too. But I feel like this individual took it to caricature levels. We have this Neeko player, one of the best players in this game, aren't they all? Based on the account and the name, I strongly suspect that this was an older woman. Please try out the mid lane. There are so many teams who would wildly benefit from having a reliable Neeko in the mid lane. What you suffered from in this game is you were sidestepping a little bit too much. That meaningless Diablo-style dodging that doesn't really do anything in League of Legends, because you get hit anyway. Don't forget, on average, you will have more success building Neeko like Smolder and giving her Blade of the Ruined King so you can trigger that passive to benefit from enhanced damage every 3 auto attacks. Really an attack speed champion more than anything with that perfect root. Can also be built like a powerful mage, just has everything. It's unfair. We have this Garen, who played a massive role in winning this game. Old person, as you can tell by the Ghost and Flash combo. You took on extra responsibilities. You were jungling for us and doing the grubs. You faced the impossible task of fighting this Cho'Gath player and going up against that insane health pool. That is always, for anybody who's matched up with Cho'Gath, instantly going to ruin your personal record and your KDA because of the fact that Cho'Gath never goes down. So you can only go in the negative. Such amazing map awareness from this guy, and just showcasing that endless reliability of Garen. It'll be interesting for me to see when Garen falls off. People that I've talked to suggest that Garen falls off very quickly and that he's not at all fit for ranked play, but I'm starting to wonder, man. There is so much in that sustain that he has. There's so much in that survivability. We have this Tryndamere player, one of the worst players in this game. Mr. Compensation here, yapping at this, yapping at that, continuously talking back to people, continuously giving orders to people. You didn't do the jungle objectives, you didn't give us buffs. Most of all, you had nearly no map awareness whatsoever. And if I had not muted you, we would have probably ended up having an internal struggle and having an internal conflict in the team. We have myself, Cho'Gath would have most definitely taken down Team Red if I had not been all over the map with my presence. I have played many games and many matchups where my KDA was a lot better. I have played many games and many matchups where I had more achievements, but I have never been this much of a winning player in any other game ever before. I was like a sped up version of Cho'Gath in this game, indestructible all over the map, and you can see it's impossible to say this with a straight face on the internet, but I will try. People are literally running away from me in this game, if you pay attention. That is what you will see. The perfect illustration of what the point is of playing mid lane, stepping out into a field that offers me the ability to turn everything around. because of both the massive contributions that mages have to general team dynamics, as well as because of the fact that usually they are the least serious players, goofing off on pretty girls like Ari, or struggling with their identity on Aurora. We have the Sechuani player going something like 6 and 11, Sechuani as a shooter. In your case, your little trick did not work out the way that it did on the other hand, because you ended up with a real support player, so that we had no shooter players whatsoever, because neither Nami nor Sechuani have any real offensive potential. It's very reminiscent of what we've seen from Tryndamere in Annie episode 7, which is to say, if you're gonna put in that much effort, just go ahead and play an actual fitting champion, instead of going complete troll mode in the character selection screen. I 1000% love Sechuani. I 1000% think that more tanks should be active in the game. Many casual teams would benefit from having at least 3 tanky individuals, but not in this slot and not in this way, man. You're making a joke out of it. We have this Nami player who was put in a bit of an impossible situation. Definitely a very constructive person, seems to be an old woman. I think you put in amazing effort. But as I've said all the way from the beginning of this channel, this type of caster support relies way too much on the glory of the ADC and is incapable of creating their own shots and their own opportunities. As soon as the ADC goes down, they become completely helpless, which is a good formula for the higher levels, but not for casual play. There's a lot of symbolic value to this victory. It's pretty to look at. Ended up going 21-22. Very enticing type of game, not one-sided at all. Good watch. And Annie so mana reliant and so fragile that she has to be taken care of a lot more, but just such a good way to revitalize that mage position. Taking a look at the scoreboard here, put it to you this way, this would be too all-out offensive if you were putting together Fortune. As a matter of fact, I would actually love to see Ravenous Hydra being used on Fortune one day. It's a shame, I'd test it myself, if I had time. The same story as forever. You tanked a massive amount of hits. You took a massive amount of damage. You don't have a single mitigating item, so you took all of it directly to the face. I've also not seen the effect of this thing here in your play. It didn't seem like you were that swift at all. That's a lot of money, that's for sure. Yeah, in this case, I guess it's kind of low-hanging fruit because of the very name, Free Spirit. Spaces to go to, a bunch of Zen cones, a bunch of offline pure fantasy games that focus in on your own personal fulfillment. Very good and very beautiful that you're not going along with everything like a mindless robot. But this is the worst possible expression of that. It's like not going along with the rules of math in a mathematical equation. This kind of free spirit would be commendable in a political movement, not so much in a mathematical equation. So, the reason why this doesn't work, with this item you're adding 105 ability power primarily. There is not a single skill that Poppy has, or a single spell that Poppy has, that requires ability power. So that is a complete and total zero value. If you're looking for magic resistance, there are tank items that add way more, and of course this is one of the most aggressive tank items, so this is a bad example. But there are tank items that add way more magic resistance than this. The reason why this doesn't work is because the absolute net amount of time that you are going to spend rubbing up to another player in direct physical contact, able to reach them with your auto attack, with Poppy is going to be close to zero. Poppy is a character that struggles immensely to stick to targets, probably because that was not at all her intended design. It's safe to say that this is the biggest unintentional troll build that we will see in a very long time. And it is not at all improbable that you saw me taking off and that you just copied my item, which by itself somewhat undermines your own title. Yeah, try not to be this guy above all, because it will end up giving you a bad feeling at the end of the day. Look at this wild disparity, and it surely has some function to put pressure on enemies in order to deplete them and to back down, but definitely not like this. Look at this disparity in stats. Look at this disparity here in damage. Talking about a sniper as opposed to spraying at random. Has to leave you with the feeling that you're inferior. Moving on.
30 seconds until minions spawn. Minions have spawned.
Come out, wherever you are. Are we there yet? Beautiful, isn't it? Have you seen my bear slippers? Don't be a scaredy cat! Pew!
First blood.
Never play with matches.
You have slain an enemy.
You really got robbed there, man. I mean, that is a Tryndamere player beating himself up.
Try to keep up.
She can't even auto attack.
been slain. An enemy has been slain.
Have you seen my bear Tivers? Don't be a scaredy cat! Never play with Come out, wherever you are. Are we there yet?
An ally has been slain.
Skip. Have you seen my bear Tivers? This way. Door unlocked.
Killing spree.
Nearly died. Nearly died just due to me.
Don't be a scaredy cat. Keep up. I never play with that.
Is Garen apparently going to crash the game for no reason? I guess I'm winning a little bit too much. Just apparently randomly going to give up on the top lane for no reason.
Come out wherever you are.
has been slain.
This is fun!
An ally has been slain.
I've seen my fair I never play with Sing come out, wherever one round to another. Meeny, miny, burn!
Mana is something else. Like, I nearly died because of the mana, dude.
An enemy has been slain.
Very interesting. It's almost as though she has the mana pool of a fighter. Instead of a mage.
Are we there yet?
An ally has been slain.
Skip, jump! This way!
Golden Team has destroyed a turret.
You see my big nippers? See your spirit. A door unlocked. Eyes on fire. Don't be a scaredy cat.
An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain. Your team has destroyed a turret. Your turret has been destroyed.
Try to keep up.
Every day that I play, there's like 3 or 4 impossible getaways. Like, situations in which I wouldn't get away in 100 million years.
Down.
Like this just now, like you had 1 HP left and 2 guys on you, but you get away. It's just some shit you don't see happening to anybody else.
Come out, wherever.
An enemy has been slain. Shut down. An ally has been slain. Your team has destroyed a turret.
Are we there yet?
Your team has destroyed a turret.
Have you seen my bear Timbers?
An enemy has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
Try to keep up.
An ally has been slain. Enemy killing spree.
I never play with matches.
Your turret has been destroyed.
Come out, wherever you are.
Ally has been slain. Your turret has been destroyed.
Are we there yet? This way. Don't be a scaredy cat.
Enemy killing spree. Enemy killing spree.
I never play with matches. Try to keep up. Come out, wherever you are. Are we there yet? Don't be a scaredy cat.
I know for a fact, and I don't know why, but I know for a fact that when I get Voracious Atakan, I do not get the double life half of the time. They're specifically paid attention to.
Ally has been slain.
Try to keep up. I never play with matches. Come out wherever you are.
An ally has been slain.
Are we there yet?
You somehow lost the Drake. After throwing yourself on the Drake. How is that even possible? How did you manage that?
slain. An ally has been slain.
Come out, wherever you are.
Your turret has been destroyed. Shut down.
Excuse me.
Try to keep up. Hop, skip, jump.
Okay. 2 cents away from it, we're not gonna get it. No.
Are we there yet?
But I
Your
have to
team
see
has
that.
destroyed a turret.
This way.
An ally has been slain. Your team has destroyed a turret. An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain. Your inhibitor has been destroyed.
You see my dirt slippers? Not done.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
Come out, wherever you are.
Your team has destroyed an inhibitor. Your inhibitor has been destroyed. Your team has destroyed an inhibitor. Your team has destroyed a turret. Double kill. Your team has destroyed a turret.
Oh.